Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are going to crack open the official playbook for turning big ideas into actual, real-world results. We're going to follow a project's entire life, from just a tiny spark all the way to a finished product. We'll cut through all the jargon and see exactly how the pros get it done. So let's just dive right in.
I mean, it kind of seems like magic, doesn't it? But, it's not. Behind every successful launch and every on-time delivery, there's a really structured approach to taming that chaos. It's all about having a roadmap, a plan that guides you from a simple idea all the way across the finish line.
And really, the most recognized playbook in the entire world is this one, the PMBOK guide from the Project Management Institute. Think of it as our source material for this whole explainer. We're going to walk through its key documents, but not as some boring list. We're going to treat it like a story, the story of a project's journey, from concept to completion.
Okay, so every single project starts with a spark, right? An idea. But you know what? An idea is not enough. Before anyone writes a single line of code or lays a single brick, the project has to justify its own existence. This part is all about answering one absolutely critical question. Why are we even doing this? So the very first hurdle is the business case. Now, the PMBOK guide calls it a documented economic feasibility study, which is a fancy way of saying it proves the project is worth the time and money. Let's use an example. Say, adding a new feature to a banking app. The business case would show the market demand, it would forecast the revenue, and it would make the solid argument that this is a smart investment.
But here's the thing. A project's success isn't just about finishing it. The benefits management plan looks beyond the launch date. It actually outlines how we're going to get the value that was promised back in the business case. So for our banking app, this means defining the metrics, like user adoption rates, and deciding who is going to track them long after the project team has packed up and moved on.
So here it is, the key difference laid out nice and simple. The business case is the why. It justifies the project's entire existence. The benefits management plan is the how. It's the strategy for actually capturing that value. And what's really crucial here is that both of these are created before the project even gets a green light.
And this is the green light, the project charter. Once that business case gets approved, this document is issued. It officially authorizes the project to exist, and, this is just as important, it gives the project manager the authority they need to start building a team and spending company money. With this document, the project is now officially real.
All right, with the project officially born, we are moving into the next phase, planning. This is where we translate that high-level vision from the charter into a super detailed, actionable blueprint that's going to guide every single decision from here on out.
And at the heart of all this planning is the project management plan. This is the master document. You can think of it as the single source of truth for the project. It pulls together all the smaller plans for scope, schedule, cost, risk, you name it, into one comprehensive guide for the whole journey.
Now, one of the most critical parts of that plan is something called the scope baseline. It defines exactly what we are building. It starts with a detailed scope statement. Then, it breaks all that work down into smaller, more manageable pieces in the work breakdown structure, or the WBS. And finally, the WBS dictionary adds all the little details for each of those pieces. This whole thing makes sure everyone knows exactly what is, and just as importantly, what is not part of this project.
And this comparison just shows the difference in detail perfectly. The project charter, it gave us the high-level stuff, but the project scope statement, well, it gets really granular. It lists out the detailed deliverables, the exact criteria for success, and it even states what's being excluded, and that is so important for preventing that dreaded scope creep later on. Of course, no project exists in a bubble, and that's where the risk management plan comes in. This document outlines how the team is going to identify, analyze, and respond to potential problems. For our banking app, this is where we'd plan for things like data security threats, unexpected server downtime, or even the risk that, hey, maybe not enough people will use the new feature. It's all about preparing for uncertainty.
Okay, blueprint is in hand. Now it is time to build. We're now in the execution phase, where the team starts actively designing, coding, building, turning all those plans into something you can actually see and touch. And the output of all that hard work is a deliverable. The PMBOK guide defines it as any unique and verifiable product, result, or capability. So for our banking app, a deliverable isn't just the final finished feature. No, it could be the completed user interface design, or a functional login screen, or a tested funds transfer module. Each one is a concrete piece of progress.
But what happens when things need to change? The plan isn't set in stone. Let's say halfway through the project, a key stakeholder decides they now absolutely need to have biometric login. Well, that idea starts its life as a change request. It's a formal proposal to modify the plan, which then has to be reviewed for its impact on cost, on the schedule, on everything, before it can be approved.
Now, it's really important not to confuse an issue with a risk. A risk is something that might happen in the future. An issue is a problem that is happening right now. If a critical development server crashes, that is an issue. It gets recorded in the issue log, where it's tracked and assigned to someone until it's completely resolved. Think of it as the team's live to-do list for problems.
So the team is building, they're handling changes, they're resolving issues, but how do we know if we're actually on track? Well, this brings us to the monitoring and controlling phase. You can think of this as the project's nervous system. It's constantly measuring performance against the plan to catch any problems early.
And it all starts with something called work performance data. This is just the raw facts, the unanalyzed observations. For example, we spent $10,000 this week, or we completed 5 tasks. They're just numbers, completely stripped of any context. The next step is to turn that data into work performance information. This is where the analysis happens. We compare the raw data against our plan, our baselines for schedule and cost, and now those raw numbers start to tell a story. We're not just spending money, we're $2,000 over budget for the amount of work we've actually done. See the difference?
And finally, all that valuable information gets packaged into work performance reports. These are designed to make people take action. This could be a dashboard for stakeholders or a weekly status report for the project sponsor. It doesn't just say where we are today, it shows trends and forecasts, allowing the leadership team to take corrective action before it's too late.
So after all that planning, all the building, all the course correcting, we finally approached the finish line. But closing a project is so much more than just saying, we're done. It's a formal process of delivering that final piece of value and, just as importantly, learning from the entire experience.
This is the moment of truth. Accepted deliverables. Our new mobile banking feature is fully built, it's fully tested, it's now formally presented to the customer or the product owner, and they validate it against those acceptance criteria we defined way back in the scope statement. Once they formally sign off on it, the deliverable is officially accepted. That is success.
But the project produces one more absolutely critical deliverable: knowledge. The lessons learned register is where the team records what went right, what went wrong, and what they would do differently next time. As the PMBOK guide itself says, the whole goal is to improve future performance, making sure the entire organization gets smarter with every single project it completes.
So from a simple business case all the way to a final lessons learned register, this framework isn't just about bureaucracy. It is a logical sequence of tools all designed to create clarity, to manage expectations, and to reduce risk. It turns a chaotic, complex process into a manageable journey. And that really just leaves us with a final thought. Where in your own work could a clearer roadmap make all the difference?